The snow had been falling since late afternoon, soft at first, like feathers drifting from a torn pillow in the sky. But as the evening deepened into night, the wind picked up, turning the gentle snowfall into a biting storm. Streetlights flickered through the white haze, casting long, lonely shadows across empty sidewalks. Christmas lights blinked behind frosted windows, warm and inviting, except for one house at the end of Maple Street, where darkness clung stubbornly to every corner. Inside that small, aging house, Sarah Collins sat on the edge of a worn-out couch, clutching a thin blanket around her shoulders. The faint glow of a dying lamp illuminated her tired face. Her eyes, once bright with hope, now carried the weight of grief and exhaustion. It had been 8 months since her husband, Daniel, had died in a construction accident. 8 months of trying to stay strong. 8 months of pretending everything would somehow be okay. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, the truth was impossible to ignore. There were no presents under the tree, just an old artificial pine with half its lights burned out, leaning slightly to one side as if it, too, had given up. A few handmade ornaments hung unevenly from its branches, crafted years ago when life had still felt full of laughter and promise. Now they seemed like relics from another world. From the small bedroom down the hallway came the soft murmur of voices. Her children were still awake. "Mom," a small voice called out, hesitant, fragile. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, gathering what little strength she had left. "I'm here, sweetheart," she replied, forcing warmth into her voice. The bedroom door creaked open, and her 8-year-old daughter Lily stepped into the dim light, clutching a threadbare stuffed rabbit. Her younger brother, Noah, peeked from behind her, his wide eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and worry. "Is Santa still coming?" Lily asked quietly. The question pierced Sarah's heart like a blade. She swallowed hard, her throat tightening as she searched for words that wouldn't break the fragile hope in her daughter's eyes. "Of course he is," she said softly, managing a faint smile. "He always comes." Noah stepped forward, his small voice trembling. "Even if we don't have cookies." Sarah hesitated. They had no cookies. No milk. Not even enough groceries to make a proper dinner that night. The pantry held little more than a can of soup and a few slices of stale bread. "He understands," she said gently. "Santa knows everything." The children exchanged a glance, then slowly nodded, as if trying to convince themselves it was true. Lily hugged her rabbit tighter. "Can we stay up a little longer?" she asked. "Just in case we hear him." Sarah wanted to say no. They needed sleep, and she needed a moment alone to breathe, to think, to figure out how she was going to get through another day. But the look on their faces stopped her. "Just a little while," she said. They curled up beside her on the couch, the three of them huddled together under the thin blanket. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and sneaking through the cracks in the walls. The house felt colder than ever. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the distant sound of car tires crunching through snow and the occasional gust of wind. Sarah stared at the tree, her mind drifting back to the Christmases she used to share with Daniel. He had always made this night magical. No matter how busy or tired he was, he would come home with a grin, his arms full of gifts and decorations. He would lift the kids onto his shoulders to hang ornaments, his laughter filling the room. He would insist on baking cookies, even though he always burned at least one batch. And when the children went to bed, he would sit beside Sarah, wrapping presents and whispering about their dreams for the future. "I've got you," he would always say, squeezing her hand. "No matter what happens, I've got you." Tears welled in her eyes as the memory faded. The silence that followed felt deafening. A sudden knock at the door shattered the stillness. Sarah froze. Another knock came, louder this time, echoing through the house. The children looked up at her, their faces filled with confusion. "Who is that?" Noah whispered. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice barely audible. "No one ever visited. Not anymore." Friends had drifted away after Daniel's death, unsure of what to say or how to help. Bills had piled up, forcing Sarah to work longer hours at a job that barely paid enough to survive. There was no one left who would come knocking on Christmas Eve. The knock came again, firm and steady. Sarah gently untangled herself from the children and stood up. Her heart pounded as she made her way toward the door. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind, none of them reassuring. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. "Mom," Lily called softly. "It's okay," Sarah said, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. She slowly turned the knob and opened the door. A gust of icy wind rushed in, carrying with it a swirl of snowflakes. Standing on the porch was a tall man, his broad shoulders dusted with snow. He wore a dark coat, worn but sturdy, and his face was partially shadowed by the dim porch light. His eyes, however, were sharp and steady, scanning the room behind her with quiet intensity. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Can I help you?" Sarah finally asked, her voice cautious. The man hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "Are you Sarah Collins?" he asked. Her grip on the door tightened. "Yes. Who are you?" He reached into his coat, and for a split second, fear shot through her. But instead of anything threatening, he pulled out a folded piece of paper. "My name is Jack Turner," he said. I served with your husband." The world seemed to stop. "Served?" Sarah repeated, her voice trembling. Jack nodded. "Before construction. Before all of that. Daniel was Navy." Sarah stared at him, stunned. Daniel had rarely talked about that part of his life. He had mentioned it in passing, always brushing it off as something in the past, something that didn't matter anymore. "I didn't know," she began. "He didn't talk about it much," Jack said quietly. "Most of us don't." The wind howled again, and Sarah realized she was still standing there, letting the cold pour into the house. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "Please, come in." Jack stepped inside, brushing the snow from his coat. The children watched him from the couch, their curiosity outweighing their fear. "Kids," Sarah said gently, "this is a friend of your dad's." Jack gave them a small, respectful nod. "Hey there. Did you know our dad?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. Jack's expression softened. "Yeah," he said. "I knew him. Was he a soldier?" Noah asked. Jack paused, then smiled faintly. "Yeah, kid, he was." The room fell quiet again, but it was a different kind of silence now, one filled with questions, with possibility. Jack glanced around the house, taking in the worn furniture, the dim lighting, the nearly empty tree. His jaw tightened slightly, though he said nothing. "I'm sorry to just show up like this," he said, turning back to Sarah. "I tried to find you sooner. I didn't know about Daniel. Not until recently." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. "It's been hard." Jack nodded, as if he understood more than she had said. "I found something," he continued, holding up the folded paper. "It was in an old storage unit. Stuff from our deployment. Your husband left it there." Sarah hesitated, then reached out and took the paper. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. Inside was a letter. Her breath caught as she recognized Daniel's handwriting instantly. "I think you should read it," Jack said quietly. The room seemed to fade away as Sarah's eyes scanned the page. Each word felt like a voice from the past, a piece of Daniel reaching out to her across time. Her knees weakened, and she sank back onto the couch, clutching the letter to her chest. "What does it say?" Lily asked softly. Sarah looked up at her children, tears streaming down her face, not just from sorrow this time, but from something deeper, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Hope." Jack watched her carefully, then took a step forward. "Come with me," he said. Sarah blinked, startled. "What? Come with me?" he repeated, his voice firm but not unkind. "You and the kids. Just for tonight." She stared at him, confusion and hesitation battling inside her. "I can't just," she began. "You can," Jack said. "Trust me." The wind roared outside, rattling the windows once more, as if urging her to decide. Sarah looked at her children, at their thin blankets, their hopeful eyes, their quiet resilience. Then she looked back at Jack. Something in his gaze, steady, unwavering, told her that this wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. And for the first time in months, she felt the faintest spark of warmth in the cold, silent night.